when it comes to AI or artificial intelligence, that is a huge topic, huge trend right now in our industry. Talk to us a little bit about your philosophy at Fisher around AI, how you're approaching it, your outlook on it. What can you tell us about that from your perspective?
I think our industry needs to embrace AI, and Fisher is embracing AI. It needs to be used appropriately. I think that is the key. There is a shortage of engineers in our industry due to retirements, due to insufficient graduates now. Inherently, we have to do more with less. That doesn't mean replace the critical thinking minds of engineers with AI. What it does mean, and the philosophy that we've adopted, is free people for high-value thinking, delivering brilliant work and providing superior clientship, which is our client service philosophy.
Many engineers think the path to CEO is a natural extension of their technical career, but in reality, it requires a shift towards leading people, shaping strategy, and making decisions that impact an entire organization. In today's episode, I'm joined by Roseann Schmid, licensed professional engineer and CEO of Fisher Associates. Roseann shares insights from her leadership journey and how she approaches guiding a growing engineering firm in today's evolving environment. We're going to talk about how leaders are thinking about AI and actually some practical ways they're implementing it at Fisher. We're going to talk about how to build a culture that can sustain a company as it grows, which is always a challenge. And we're also going to talk about how you can remain accessible as a leader and still get your work done. If you're an engineering leader navigating growth, talent development, and industry change, this conversation will give you practical perspective to help you lead more effectively and position your organization for long-term success. Now, before I jump in with Roseann, I do want to tell you about AEC PM Connect, a series of in-person events that we've created at EMI for AEC project managers and the leaders who develop them. If you want to stay on top of PM trends, elevate your team, and deliver strong project results, these full-day events are built for you. Learn more and register at aecpmconnect.com. I'm Anthony Fasano, and this is the Civil Engineering CEO. All right, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Roseann Schmid is the licensed professional engineer. She's also the chief executive officer of Fisher Associates. And Roseann, I want to welcome you to the Civil Engineering CEO.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. Appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to have you. Happy that you're spending a few minutes with us. So, Roseann, for those that are unfamiliar with Fisher Associates, maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about the firm and maybe a little bit about kind of your background and your career trajectory that led you to the role as CEO.
Certainly. So Fisher Associates is a multidisciplined consulting, engineering, and design firm. We are headquartered in Rochester, New York, but we have 8 offices, 6 throughout New York State, 1 in Pennsylvania, and 1 in Texas. So we were originally founded in 1984 by Claire Fisher. And interestingly enough, are you familiar with the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the DBE program?
Yes, I am familiar with it. Yeah, I don't know if our
Yeah.
listeners are, but
So that Congress enacted that program in 1983, which was designed to assist firms getting started and launching themselves in the consulting engineering world. And so what that did was the feds dedicated a certain percentage of work that was federally funded work needed to be given to these disadvantaged business enterprise companies who had these certifications. And so Claire was working for a larger prime consultant here in Rochester at the time. And after this program was implemented, the CEO of that firm came to her and said, I think you should start your own company because we're going to need to use firms with this certification. And we would use you if you started your own company. So she ended up leaving and starting Fisher Associates, and then became a certified DBE and was doing a lot of sub-consultant work for a lot of the primes in the area under the DBE program. And so that's really how Fisher launched and grew. And her goal was always to graduate from the program, which was revenue threshold driven. you achieved a certain revenue threshold for 3 consecutive years, you were considered successful and you graduated from the program. And that was her goal. And so that's when we were preparing to graduate from the program. She wanted to bring on project managers that could manage projects from beginning to end as a prime, because most of the work they did was task management as a subconsultant on bigger projects. So that's when I came over to Fisher, when they were preparing to graduate from the DVE program, because I had been working for the same prime consultant that she had worked for, managing projects as a prime. So that's when I came over to Fisher, and then we launched ourselves into the prime consulting world and started competing as a prime consultant after graduating from that program. So that's sort of the Fisher background. And personally, for myself, I civil engineer, graduated from Clarkson University, and my first career was at General Dynamics in Groton, Connecticut, designing steel foundations for anything mounted in a nuclear submarine. And so did that for 3-4 years, and then moved to the Albany area and went to work for an environmental compliance firm, and did that for about 3-4 years, and then moved back to Rochester, which is where I was from, and went to work for a prime, Erdman Anthony,
Okay.
and went to work in the transportation infrastructure field. And that's where I spent the rest of my career. And when I came over to Fisher, came over as a project manager in the transportation group. An interesting twist on my career is that I came over to Fisher as a part-time project manager. I went to work part-time in 1997 when my daughter was born, which at that time was a little out of the norm. There weren't a lot of females in the field to begin with, and let alone then going part-time on top of it. So I was able to do that and worked part-time for, I think, 13 years, through both my kids growing up. And so when Fisher approached me, I was a little taken aback, because I was like, I'm part-time, that's, why would
Right.
you want to hire me? And they said, we know you have a great reputation as a project manager, and we need good project managers. So I remember Rob Goosen was Claire's second in command at the time. And he had said to me, I'll tell you 2 things. You'll be valued and you'll be given opportunity. And so I left and came over, and, that was in 2007, and took on a variety of positions. I was a part-time project manager for a few more years, and then I came back to work full-time. Took on the highway group manager position, and then the transportation market sector director position, and got elected to the board of directors and became a shareholder. And in 2017 was elected to be the CEO of the company.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I really like how Claire's company, kind of recommended to her that she start her own company. I think that's really great, really supportive, to be able to do that. And then kind of your journey, which is interesting in that, like you said, it wasn't maybe the regular thing at that time, certainly to hire someone part-time, or like you said, a female working in the industry. And it's great that they saw the value in you as a project manager and brought you on board. And, the thing I always like to ask is, when I talk to CEOs, they never say, when I started my civil engineering career, I wanted to be a CEO. So I guess the question I would have for you is, as your career started to unfold, when did you kind of see that CEO was a possibility, or that it was going to happen? And what were you thinking about at that time? Because that's obviously a major career change, or a big thing with his responsibility as a CEO. So maybe you can take us inside of what that kind of process looked like.
Yeah, so I think one thing I started realizing throughout my career is I always sort of took on the projects, the one-offs, the things that nobody else wanted, because they hadn't been done before, and you needed to figure it out. And so I became known as the person to go to when you needed something figured out, right? Like,
Right.
just give it to Roseann.
Something hard done.
She'll figure it out, right? And so I started realizing that, maybe there's more I can do in my career, right? Than what I was doing. And when Fisher approached me, I started thinking about what my career trajectory was going to be where I was, which was a little bit limited, just because of the philosophy they had on promoting. And it was more based on seniority at the company. And so I had not started my career at the company, and I would be competing against people who had been there since college.
Sure.
So I saw the writing on the wall that I really wasn't going to be eligible, most likely, for a higher level position. And so that's really what prompted me to go to Fisher.
Hmm.
And Fisher was in a growth mode, right? Had graduated from the DBE program, were becoming a prime, and they were growing. And so, as with any growing firm, even Fisher today, it continues to evolve and change, and new positions open up as your organizational structure grows and changes. And that's exactly what happened with the positions that I ended up taking at Fisher and being able to move into were a result of our growth trajectory. And as I moved into these upper management positions, I just became more involved in all the different aspects of the business and getting on the board of directors and really getting into the nitty gritty of decision making for the company. And I just loved it. And when, I saw, Claire obviously was planning to retire, and Rob ended up taking over after she retired in 2015, her second in command. But he was on a shorter time frame because he was looking to retire. And so kind of during that time period when Claire retired, I started realizing, I could be a candidate for this after Rob was going to retire. And that's when it really kind of became a reality for me. And I really had to think about, do I want to throw my hat in the ring for this or not?
Right.
So
it's not a small decision.
But I will say, coming to Fisher and working directly with Claire as the founder and the business owner, I learned so much, and it really made me more passionate about being a CEO, running the company, because I just learned so much from her and saw the potential that you could do in that role and the impact that you could have on the company and the people.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, Claire was a great mentor, kind of, and role model, right, to model your career after, especially for you, kind of following in the CEO footsteps.
Yeah.
And it's important to have mentors in your career for everybody at every level of their career. And I think this is a good lesson that even CEOs need mentors, right? It doesn't stop at a certain level of your career. I mean, there's always someone who has more experience than you. There's always someone who can help you and provide guidance to you. And I also think that it's great that to have as many female CEOs as we can in the civil engineering industry, because like you mentioned earlier, it has been a challenge historically in our industry. And I know this, I mean, my wife's a civil engineer, and when we graduated, she was one of the few females in our graduating class. And I think we've made progress over time. We still have a lot of work to do. But it's always great to see that we have leaders in the industry, because then you're going to be able to be the role model like Claire was, right, for the next generation of leaders. So, so it sounds like a really positive experience that you've had there, which is great. All right, let's dive into some of these trending topics in the industry and kind of get a little bit of a pulse on how you're thinking about them at Fisher. The first one, I mean, obviously, when it comes to AI or artificial intelligence, that is a huge topic, huge trend right now in our industry. Talk to us a little bit about your philosophy at Fisher around AI, how you're approaching it, your outlook on it. What can you tell us about that from your perspective?
Yeah. So I think our industry needs to embrace AI, and Fisher is embracing AI. It needs to be used appropriately. I think that is the key. There is a shortage of engineers in our industry due to retirements, due to insufficient graduates now, and not enough people entering these programs. I think I pulled a couple stats. Engineering degrees declined, the completion of engineering degrees declined from 60,000 in 2019 to 55,000 in 2023, and it's continuing to go down. 27% of AEC workers are over 55, so they're going to be retiring. So you have more people exiting and not entering, and there's a huge shortage of engineers to do the work that we have. So inherently, we have to do more with less. That doesn't mean replace the critical thinking minds of engineers with AI. What it does mean, and the philosophy that we've adopted is, and in Lotto, the vision that we have is free people for high value thinking, delivering brilliant work and providing superior clientship, which is our client service philosophy. Rethink your systems, automate the repeatable, simplify the necessary, and protect the critical. So we want to use AI to simplify, the necessary and automate, the mundane, so that our people can be preserved for the critical thinking tasks that are most important for them to focus on doing. So that's our approach to AI and in technology in general, whether it's the Microsoft suite tools and automating, something with a Microsoft form or a workflow or something like that, or if it is using AI or an agent to help complete a task, but it's not to replace the critical thinking.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. And what I like about that is I really like what you said, how you can free people up for those creative, right? High level, thought processes and things that you need to do that you really need to sit on, think on. Could be relationship building with clients, right? Things of that nature that you can kind of have some of the more mundane routine tasks may be able to be accelerated or expedited through the AI. And I think that that's great. And what I think was really great about your answer is you have a philosophy around it, right? I think for anything in life, anything in business, you should really think through things and create a strategy for your organization around it. Even if your strategy is to not embrace AI or embrace AI, one way or the other, you need to have a message for your team members that number one, you're thinking about it, right? And that you have a thoughtful and intelligent approach to how you're going to handle it. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that you put together some of that verbiage and you're able to, easily communicate that to your team.
Yes, and we are actually in the process of launching a whole AI education program. We have a company-wide meeting coming up. We want everyone in our company to hear the same message about how we are going to embrace AI at Fisher and how we aren't going to embrace it at Fisher. And so we have everyone in the company is going to attend this. It's a half-day meeting. We have a consultant that we brought in to help us build a framework for evaluating issues that our people bring to the table, right? Somebody's going to bring some inefficiency up, right? And we need to have a good framework in place as at the clearinghouse. We dump them all into this framework and to evaluate, prioritize, determine what we're going to spend our money on in making more efficient or streamlining a process, and so that we're spending our money in the best possible way and getting the best return that we can and addressing the highest priority issues that our people are facing.
Yeah, it sounds great. You take all those concerns, you dump them into AI.
Yeah, right. Tell me what I should do.
Yeah. No, but that is important. And I think again, where I've seen companies drop the ball on this is not having a plan or philosophy around it or not having guidelines around it too, right? Which it sounds like you're going to address by saying what we are going to embrace and what we're not going to embrace, right? Because, there are some legal issues and some things that can bite you with AI. And it sounds like those are things you're thinking through, which is great. And I would just have a message for anyone listening out there. And hopefully a takeaway for you can be that your organization really should think about the plan and the strategic approach to it and how you are going to utilize it effectively, but also, keep an eye out there for some of the risks associated with it.
Absolutely.
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training. All right, so the next thing I want to ask you about is, and I've had the chance to talk to Roseann a few times now, and I know you're very plugged into people in general. You like thinking about people. You said it earlier, and I want to talk about company culture, which obviously revolves very much around your people. How would you describe company culture, and how do you focus on culture at Fisher?
Yeah. Well, your culture begins with establishing the core values for the company, right? The core values are those behaviors that people subscribe to, right? And when people look at going to companies, that's why they look at their websites and they look at their core values, because they're like, those describe the behaviors I'm going to experience when I go there if you have a strong culture. So they start with your core values, and we have 4 core values that we subscribe to: aspire to excellence, teamwork and respect, we own our results, and empowered employees. And then what I will say is that just because you have core values doesn't mean you have a culture that demonstrates those core values, right? They have to be lived. They have to be active. They have to be alive. And they have to be what you experience day to day when you interact with everybody. And so I like to say that, well, culture is generally a noun. It really comes to life as a verb with the behaviors of people acting and doing things every day. And so we do a lot of things around culture, around our core values. So every quarter, we focus on a core value, and at our quarterly meetings, we have quarterly company meetings, we ask people to submit nominations for people that have demonstrated that core value in that quarter. And the nominations are read by the people that nominated the person. The person doesn't know that they got it, right? And we call it the Big Fish Award because we're Fisher. Everything is fish. So they get a Big Fish Award, a little fish award that they can put in their office for the quarter, and they get a gift card. And they get to hear about how what they did impacted their team or another individual in the company by demonstrating that core value. And so it's one of my favorite moments in our company meetings. We usually end with the Big Fish Awards, and it's really heartwarming to hear the care that our employees have for each other. And when your culture comes alive like that, it becomes self-policing. People will be like, "Oh, that's not who we are," when somebody says something a little out of turn or whatever, like, "Oh no, we all help. Like, you need to
That's
jump in and
great.
help." So, we try to tie a lot of things to a core value. Like if we're in a meeting, right, and we're like, "All right, we need to be empower employees today. Like let's figure this out," right?
That's great.
So
I like
just
that.
trying to throw it in there when you can, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's important because I think a lot of times what gets lost in the mission, vision, values conversation is people can't remember them easily and they can't grab onto them, or if they're not used or talked about enough, they forget them. And it's great that you're able to weave it into day-to-day activities because that really makes it, like you said, you've got to talk the talk, but then walk the walk, right? And I think by making them something that people can grab onto, and you could see how we're talking about at the beginning of a meeting, or right, or we catch ourselves saying, "Hey, that's not really who we are." That proves that people have grabbed onto it, and they're able to bring it down to their day to day activities, which to me is really the culture, right? It's how you're acting every day, how
That's right.
you're showing up. So I think that's great. And I think the other thing that's interesting about it is, there we could sit here all day and think about the benefits and the disadvantages of a small company versus a larger company. And there's pluses and minuses for both. But I think one of the pluses of when you have a smaller sized company is you understand the origin of the company, right? Claire and what she built and what she did. And that can also, I think, help with the mission and the vision and the values because, like, you know who the company's been and how the company's grown. Whereas if you work for a company that's thousands of people, like the CEO might have no idea like how he came up with this vision or values, right? Or where it came from, which doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a great culture, but it also means it can be harder to grab onto it and try to again permeate it and help to live it out. So I think that it's great that again, similar to your AI approach, you have a very clearly defined values. And most importantly, you're trying to facilitate people being able to live them out on a daily basis, right? I mean, that to me, that's the whole key.
It is key. And you're right. It does have to start at the top, right? It has to start with all of us living them every day. And, employees mimic what they see their leaders doing. So
100%.
it needs to start with us. And if we do that and we keep it alive in our daily language and what we're talking about and why we're doing the things that we do, and, when somebody makes a mistake, we're like, aspire to excellence. Doesn't mean be perfect. It means learn from your mistakes and
Yep.
don't make the same mistake twice, right? It
Right.
happens, right? No, we're not expecting perfection. We're expecting you to pursue improvement. And
Yeah,
so,
that's great.
it's those conversations, on a day-to-day basis because those things happen every day, right?
Yeah. And it really equips your managers and leaders with something that they can talk to in any meeting, right? If they see something get tripped up, they can say, hey, let's go back to our values for a minute.
That's right.
How can we go back to that and stay aligned to who we are in this situation? So I think that that's a great tool for them as well, which is
Yeah, you
great.
bring up a good point, interesting point though, because a challenge, because people value our culture and we have people that have been with us for 30 years, right? And we're only a little over 40 years old. And so the concern is we're going to lose the culture as we grow.
Yes.
And so I done the round robin throughout the company to talk about the importance of growth to our people, right?
Yep.
We have to stay relevant. We have to continue to grow to open up those career opportunities for people. As I said, the organizational structure will grow. It'll create opportunities, get to work on different types of projects as we move into different geographies. There's a lot of upside to growth for our people. And if we use our culture as our North Star, if we're always hiring for culture, if we're always acquiring for culture, your culture can actually get stronger because you're bringing on more people that subscribe to the same things that you subscribe to. But the key is that it has to be what you're hiring for and what you're acquiring firms for. So, and we were very clear on that. Hiring is culture first. We can train them on skills, but you can't train people to value the cultures you value. That is something that is already in them and they're looking for a place that they feel they can fit in with. So I've made that round robin as well to our company to say, we can actually have a stronger culture as we grow. We have to make sure that we're looking for people that subscribe to those same values that we hold so important to us.
That's great. Yeah, really, like you said, it gives you a North Star for everything you do. But I agree in hiring, it's awesome because that allows you to continue to grow at this with the same culture in mind and finding those like-minded people that are willing to embrace that culture that you've created, which is awesome. And that kind of leads us really perfectly into my next topic, which is growth. You mentioned the idea of growth, and we need to keep growing to keep giving people opportunities, which is happening at Fisher. And if you're going to grow sustainably, you need to have strong leaders. So, what is Fisher's philosophy on leadership development?
It's super important. We're proud to say that most of our leaders have come up from within
That's great.
in some way, shape, or form, right? I mean, I didn't start my career here, but I've been here for over 18 years and came up from being a project manager to the CEO, right? We had our former COO who started out as an intern at Fisher Associates and then eventually became the COO of the company, right? So a lot of it in the earlier days was just working as a smaller company, right? You could be involved in more things. You could learn more things about the business. You could get involved in different initiatives much easier. As you grow, it has to become a more concerted effort, a real effort to train your people. To we have what we call a coach cascading system. So I'll coach my people directly below me, right? And then they coach the people below them, and then they coach the people below them. So as you get coached, you learn how to be a better coach, right?
That's
And
great.
so
Yeah, I like
that's
that.
the coach cascading system, right? And I have an external coach, so I'm getting coached. Then in turn, I'm going to be a better coach to the people I'm coaching. And then they're going to learn and be better coaches to the people they're coaching. And so it's something that you have to intentionally think about every day. It's so easy to get caught up in the mundane and just tell people what they need to do. You have to help them grow, help them learn and grow so that they are ready to become those next leaders, because you're exposing them to all the things that they need, and allowing them to have that critical thinking to solve the problems. We're just so busy today. It's so easy to tell people, just go do this. This is the answer. And you have to not do that. And then, of course, we have formal training programs as well, both
Sure.
internally as well as externally. We send people to a variety of training programs. And that's important as well. It has to also be coupled with what they're experiencing every day. It's very easy for people to get comfortable being told what to do, and that's now what they expect. So they just come and say, "Oh, Anthony, I have this problem." Waiting for you to tell me what to do, right?
Right.
So getting used to saying, "That's great. What do you think? What
Right.
have you evaluated so far?" And helping
Yeah.
them through that process, and exposing them. We have an annual professional development discussion process where we want to know, what are your aspirations in your career? Do you aspire to be the CEO? Do you aspire to be the COO? Do you aspire to be a technical lead?
Mm,
What do you aspire to be, so that we can help put you on that path to achieve that? And we have
that's
both
great.
technical and management career paths at Fisher. So everyone isn't assumed that they want to be management, right? You could be a
Yeah.
senior technical lead, because we need those as well. And so understanding what people aspire to, and then setting goals to help them get there, is part of our annual process.
That's great. I mean, I love that last piece because I think a lot of companies, I think the perception in a lot of companies is, if I don't become a manager, I can't grow in this organization. And I think that's a big downfall in the AEC industry, that we don't do a good job of promoting technical leadership, technical progression. So it's great that you do that. And the other thing I really love is that coaching cascading. I mean, I think that that's great because you're basically, again, leading by example, right? Of coaching others, getting coaching, and it's just going to keep kind of passing down and permeating the organization, which again creates an organizational mindset of growth, right? Coaching is growth. So coaching
Mhm.
others, getting coaching yourself. So I think that in addition to the formal training, I think that that's a great way to continue to help people develop from experience. I mean, you learn on your own experience and the experience of others. And I think the coaching can help you with that for sure. So that's great. So, Roseann, I know that you strive to be an accessible and a transparent leader. And I'm wondering, how do you achieve that while you're still able to accomplish a lot of things yourself and you're very busy? How can you kind of balance the idea of being very accessible to people and, make sure that you stay focused on your goals as the CEO?
Yeah. First and foremost, I meet with every new employee that we bring on, so that I can put a face to a name. So when I go around to all the offices, that I'm not wondering, who is that person over there, right? And right then, that first meeting, while many of the employees may be very nervous about the first meeting, the next time I see them, they're not as nervous,
That's great.
because they've met me, right? And they're like,
Right.
"Wow, I've never expected I'd be talking to the CEO my first week at work," or, and so, and it puts them at ease because they've already met me. And then I get around to the offices. We have a lot of, when we have strategic initiatives, we have the opportunity for our employees to get involved on different committees to help achieve those initiatives. And so our leadership, and me being one of them, will chair those committees. And so that gives more exposure to our employees to working with us, just, solving problems, and not just being in a meeting listening to us talk about, how we did this quarter or whatever. It's really just rolling up our sleeves together and solving problems. I also get around to every group twice a year to their group meetings. And we send out pulse surveys ahead of time where they can submit what they'd like to talk about, topics they want to know more about, questions they have for me. And I'll attend the meetings and talk about whatever they submitted on and give them more information or ask questions. When I go to the other offices, usually making it, try to go order a lunch in or something, go out for a walk with employees. It's just being human, right?
Yeah, that's great. I think that initial meeting is great too. Like you said, it kind of they're able to meet you early on, can kind of make them more comfortable in an organization, right? Because sometimes the CEO can be just that person that you always hear about, right?
Yeah,
Like the big CEO, but I don't know who they are, right? And so that connection, I'm sure, is really helpful for them.
yeah. And I think the other thing is, I don't know, if there's something fun going on, if we're having a Halloween costume contest, I'm wearing
Right,
a costume, right?
right, right,
If
yeah,
we're carving pumpkins, I'm carving a pumpkin, right?
right,
It's I'm doing the fun stuff.
right,
Because I think it's fun and I want to be part of it.
yeah.
And I think that people see me in a different way when I'm participating at that level.
Yeah, and that speaks to the culture again, right? Like everyone's together, everyone's involved, from the top of the organization all the way through all the different disciplines and different team members, which I think is great. And it sounds like you've put some really good frameworks in place to be able to carry that through, even as Fisher continues to grow. Which, like we talked about earlier, for a lot of companies that can be a challenge. And I probably, from my experience, it's a challenge if you haven't taken the time to set things up appropriately, right? And create the guidelines, like you said, the values and, having the cascading coaching and doing different things that can help the organization to embody the values really. And that's really important in the culture.
Yeah.
So last question I have for you here, just as we wrap up, for those civil engineering professionals that might be listening and they're really striving to be kind of high level leaders in their organizations, what kind of closing piece of advice can you give to them based on your career journey to date?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is get comfortable being uncomfortable,
That's a good one.
right? And when I talk about earlier in my career, and always took on those things that nobody else wanted because it was uncomfortable, right? They didn't know what to do. I didn't realize how that was setting me up for success in the role I'm in today because it's something different every day. And as soon as you think you've got it figured out and it's going well, it's going to change, right?
Yeah,
Only thing we can count on today is change.
that's it.
And so you need to learn to embrace change and understand that there's always opportunity, right? You got to look for the opportunity and need to surround yourself with a strong team. I couldn't do this job without the team that I have around me. And so
Absolutely.
if you think being a CEO is about, pounding your chest and doing it all yourself, yeah, I think you're going to be unsuccessful, right? Because I couldn't do it without the team that I have. And you need to make sure that you're not trying to do it all yourself and you're leaning into those that have the strengths that you don't have, right?
Yeah.
You need to be aware of what your strengths and weaknesses are and use your team for their strengths. I think the other thing is kind of goes along with what we've been talking about is ensure you have a clear plan for anything. Because what I found is, and then obviously execute the plan. But what I find, people always ask me, man, you have a really stressful job. You must be stressed all the time. And I'm like, I don't really feel stressed a lot. And I started wondering, like, why is that? And I feel because when something happens, I'll always have that moment. Like, you gotta be kidding me, right?
Right, right.
Give yourself that moment. And then I start developing a plan to address it.
Yeah.
once I develop the plan and I start executing the plan, I don't feel stressed anymore.
That's a great point.
Stress, to me, is when you don't know what you need to do and you're just kind of swirling. Put a plan in place and start executing the plan. And so the sooner you can do that, the sooner that stress will subside. And then you're becoming confident as a leader. And when you're confident and you're conveying that clear path, your people will feel secure and confident. So
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. I mean, basically, the way we're ending up here with this idea of having a plan and communicating, we've really talked about that a lot of times today already, right?
right.
AI, have a plan. Your culture, have your values, communicate them, right? Which is essentially a plan of how you're going to grow your culture and keep your culture, right? So the idea of thinking through things, planning them out, which for a lot of, I would say, engineers, you kind of have the tools for that because you can think things out, right? You can create a plan. But one thing as engineers that we're not always good at is the change management, like you said, right? Because we tend to be rigid, very structured, very analytical by nature, but the only constant is change, like we just talked about, and we have to have the flexibility to change. And I think the ability to do that is, again, related to the people you surround yourself with in your organization and your culture, which can support that. So lots of good takeaways here from Roseann. And once again, Roseann Schmid, licensed professional engineer, chief executive officer at Fisher Associates. Roseann, I know how busy you are, so I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with us here on the Civil Engineering CEO.
This was great. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Roseann. She is a dynamic leader. I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought she gave us some great tips and practical takeaways, and I hope that you can implement some of them into your career. If you enjoyed the interview, please subscribe to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a regular basis to help engineering professionals become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.